Welcome to a brief presentation on the modified 5-period block schedule being planned for Westlake STEM for the 2016-17 school year. To explain the reasoning for a modified 5-period block, we'd first like to talk about why there would be a rationale for a 5-by-5 block. In many schools, Westlake included, we see a significant need for student proficiency in math and reading that is far below par. Last year at Westlake Junior High School, approximately 18% of students were proficient in math, 14% in reading. Schools who have adopted a 5-by-5 block have wanted to, as the last bullet says there, double block certain classes, specifically math and reading, so that kids would have the chance to have a period of math and reading every day rather than every other day as the AB schedule would dictate. Also, incoming sixth graders who are accustomed to 90 minutes of math and 180 minutes of language arts would have an allotment closer to what they had been used to and experiencing during their sixth grade year just a few months earlier. There are significant problems with a 5-by-5 block. Where exactly do you draw the line? Which subjects should be double blocked? Which students would need to be in a double block situation? It does also change our FTE allotment because all of a sudden we have teachers who are teaching 4 out of 5 periods rather than 3 out of 4, and that does change how you divvy out the FTE pie a little bit. Additionally, and this is a big one, it is a significant increase in the total student load for teachers at any one time. Teachers may not be seeing all of their students on one day, but they're still in charge of somewhere around 275 kids, and in some extreme cases, well over 300 students at a time. They wouldn't see them every day, but they would be in charge of that many different students on gradebook, communicating with that many different parents, etc. The final bullet there, and I think this is a significant one when considered from the vantage point of an incoming 7th grader, it's 2 extra classes, up to as many as 10, that students are in charge of keeping track of with their grades, their homework, their various syllabi, etc. Our 7th graders, as you know, are coming from a situation in most cases where they had one teacher they were working with throughout all the subjects. The contrast of that is very similar to almost going to a complex university type schedule where a student is needing to keep track of 10 different classes, 10 different syllabi, which classes they go on which days, when are those due dates, etc. The goal of the modified 5-period block is to be able to address the concerns of the 5-by-5 block and hopefully conserve the benefits. To be able to explain an important principle about the modified 5-period block, I like to show this little animation to compare what would happen with our normal A-B days. As you know, on both a 4-by-4 and a 5-by-5 block, students go to different courses on an A day as they do a B day, and those alternate each day of the week. It's very important to note that on this modified 5-by-5 block, students would not be losing any number of days, whether they be A days or B days, and therefore they wouldn't be missing any number of turns in that class or any minutes of that course. It would be the same, however, the days would be rearranged, so the students would be doing all of their A days essentially during the first semester and all of their B days. It would be a different experience for a student, and this shows a 7th grader who's 3 months ago was in 6th grade, of what they would be experiencing right off the bat for their schedule. You'd see they would have 5 periods, and that would be consistent on each day of the week. It wouldn't alternate on Monday as it would on Tuesday as on Wednesday. In this example, you can see that students in the first quarter of 7th grade would attend English in the first period, math in the second period, science in the third period, college and career awareness in the fourth period, and one of the electives, perhaps PE, in the fifth period. That shows what the student would be accountable for at any one time, this being first quarter. That student would be in charge of keeping track of 5 classes, not 8, 9, or 10, but just 5. And that would remain consistent all the way till second quarter. You can see at second quarter in this example, the student would still have 4 of the same classes, but one of them might be changing. Their PE elective would go to a different elective of their choosing, and that would remain the same until the semester mark. You can also see that we have been able to double block certain subjects, which is the main reason to consider a 5-period block schedule. English and math, as we've spoken of before, have been double blocked, But also, given that we do also have a need in science of only 15% of students proficient, and we do have a focus of a science, technology, engineering, math school, we could double block our science course. That would mean students in those courses would be getting twice the amount of time and exposure as they were in the other model, or even a next door neighbor school who might be doing an A-B schedule that hasn't been double blocked. You'll also see on fourth period that a course like college and career awareness, that on a different model, an A-B model, took an entire year to cover. Notice that that course is actually covered in one semester. Now, please note that does not mean that the students are going to that course any fewer days or any fewer minutes than they already were. They are going approximately 90 days, just like they did on an A-B schedule. However, with an A-B schedule, they were going every other day. Now they're going to do those 90 days in sequence, and they will have completed the entire course by the semester mark. You can see another example of that with Utah Studies that used to take a semester is actually now a quarter class. Once again, it hasn't eliminated any of the days or any of the minutes that it was on the other A-B schedule. However, now because we are not going to the course every other day, but rather every day, that course is accomplished in one quarter. It's similar when we look at 8th grade. Here we see the potential for our 8th grade schedule to also be double blocked in English, math, science. You can see the U.S. history course that with an A-B schedule takes an entire year to cover is actually accomplished in 90 days or in the actual semester block. Still the same number of days, the same number of minutes as it would be on an A-B schedule, but now the students are able to go through the course on an everyday basis and accomplish it by the semester mark. Once again, just like with the 7th grade examples, here we see 8th graders who would be in charge of juggling fewer balls at once. During first quarter, this student would only be in charge of their English class, their math class, their science class, U.S. history, and an elective. Those are the only 5 balls they'd worry about on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and that would change at the quarter or the semester mark as well. I like to look at this next slide and consider a minute comparison of some of the different models that our junior highs have. A 7-period day shows that you'd have classes of about 50 minutes. Over the quarter, semester, and year, that adds up, and we see at the year mark, it's about 8,800 minutes. A 4x4 block has an average of 45 periods per day. And I want to clarify that because 4x4 blocks usually would be something more like 90-minute periods. However, they only go every other day. So on a per day basis, it's approximately 45 minutes. At the quarter, that'd be 1,980, all the way to the year at 7,920. It's a little more narrow at a 5x5 block because we are carving one more period into that. And so on a 2-day average, you'd see on a 1-day average, 35 minutes per day the kids would be going to a course. It takes, throughout the course of the year, once you've done a course all year long, about 6,160 minutes. The modified 5-period block, because the kids are going to that class every day, would have periods of almost 70 minutes. That means, as we've already demonstrated, they would be accomplishing the same 6,160 minutes by the semester mark that on the A-B schedule they were needing to go all the way to the year to get the same number of minutes. You'll also see that on the courses that we've double blocked, we have the potential to get 12,320 minutes in those courses, doubling what they could have done on the A-B schedule without double blocking. It's significant. Also, I think a worthwhile comparison is to imagine what the kids had been experiencing when they were in the elementary realm, having 90 minutes or thereabouts of mathematics and doubling that of language arts. You can see at least where they're coming from when they arrive to us in 7th grade, having experienced about 15,840 minutes during the course of the year in those subjects. And language arts, like I said, would even be double that. Especially from a teacher's perspective, this next slide is a very interesting point to make. You can see the comparison of a few of our different models we've talked about. The 4x4 block actually has a class size of 36.3 kids and a student load of 218 kids. That means, and obviously that varies a little bit from teacher to teacher and class to class, but the teachers have 218 students they're in charge of at any one time. A 5 by 5 block actually expands the student load, but it does slim down the class size a little bit. Class sizes would be at 34.1, but the student load jumps up to 273 for all of the non-double blocked classes. And that can be quite the challenge. Like I said before, some classes even end up going over 300 students that the teacher is in charge of at any given time. 300 students, they're in charge of grades. 300 students, they're in charge of being able to communicate with parents, etc. On the 5-period modified block schedule, kids coming each day to the same course, class size is the same as the 5 by 5 block at 34.1. However, from the teacher's perspective, they are in charge of half of the number of kids at any one time. So for example, a teacher who's going to see all of their A students and B students on the old block are going to see all of the A students together and not even meet the B students until the semester break. That means that teacher would actually have 136 kids total to worry about at any one time. 136 kids in a grade book, 136 different sets of parents they might be needing to communicate with, but not double that they'd be worried about at one time. Definitely one of the advantages. Certainly not exactly what the daily schedule will necessarily be, but a possible daily schedule I think is worthwhile to point out. Class periods would be approximately 65 minutes. Again, that'd be 65 minutes, but you'd be seeing the same students every single day during the portion that they're with you rather than every other day. To summarize, a few things we want to consider. The modified 5-period block schedule enables us to prioritize where the data show our students are lacking. Specifically, we're seeing very low proficiency in math, language arts, and also science. It does not significantly alter elective offerings. From the 5 by 5 block, it doesn't alter the number of offerings whatsoever, but there is a little bit of a change from a 4 by 4 block. It minimizes the number of balls students, and I throw in their teachers as well, must juggle at any one time. And in many ways, I think it's a much less stark contrast for our incoming 7th graders who are just coming from an elementary environment. It does create certain obstacles for some courses, and I think this is a big one that we do need to acknowledge. Many of the courses can work very, very well all at once and then not proceeding further in those courses. Some courses do not. I think of band, orchestra, chorus, even potentially foreign languages. I have explored with other principals who are considering this. I've also explored with directors over those programs, possible options, and have come up with 3, 4, or 5 really great options. I'd love to give a couple of examples right here. Things like in the foreign language, there would be the potential to do some of the course offerings in a strategic way. So kids might be doing the foreign language course number 1 at the 2nd semester and beginning course number 2 at the 1st semester of 8th grade. So there's not such a break between when they're doing the two. Some of the benefits of that actually are that those kids would be practicing that foreign language not on an every other day basis, and sometimes worse than that if they're absent or have missed class, but on an everyday basis. For things like orchestra and band, things that could be considered and have at other schools that are considering this are to be very strategic about which of the quarters students would be in that class. It could be something like a 2nd and 3rd quarter as they're preparing to get ready for festival. It could even be a 1st quarter and a 3rd quarter. That way kids come every day at the beginning of the year. They get acquainted with the music. They get started, and then during 2nd quarter they're expected to continue practicing and continue polishing. They come back 3rd quarter and get to be in that course every single day for crunch time as they're preparing for festival right at the conclusion of 3rd quarter. Or even potentially to do something like's been done in the past with a jazz band structure where it's a before or after school program for the students who are needing to make sure that they're getting a daily dose of that throughout the whole year. I wouldn't want to say that any of those are exactly what we're going to do because that will require being able to collaborate with the new staff members in those positions and make sure that we're getting this tailored to the best service plan we can for our students and also for our teachers who are teaching those courses. but I do think it's worthwhile to know that there are many, many possible scenarios for those very real obstacles. That's really the overview of the modified 5-period block schedule. Feel free to contact me or via email or phone to be able to bounce around other ideas, but hopefully this gives a little bit of an overview. Thank you.